I'm 41 years old, and I honestly never thought I'd end up sharing something this personal. But after what just happened to me, I feel like I'm carrying this giant weight that I can't keep inside anymore. I spent 5 straight days in the hospital because of a major medical emergency, and the way my husband of 16 years reacted, or really, didn't react, has left me questioning a lot. We've got a pretty normal family setup: me, my husband who's 45, our teenage daughter, and our 8-year-old son. Life usually just runs in its routine, but last Tuesday turned into something I'll never forget. I woke up with this sharp, stabbing pain in my right side. It was bad enough that I had to sit there on the edge of the bed, holding my stomach, just trying to breathe through it before I could even stand. I figured maybe it was something minor, took a couple Advil, forced myself to make my son's lunch, and still drove to work. I had a big presentation that morning, one I'd been working on for weeks, and I didn't want to miss it. My husband was asleep when I left. He works second shift, so I didn't bother him. Our daughter was off on a college trip with almost no phone access, so she didn't even know what was going on until after I got home. I didn't want to ruin her trip by worrying her when she couldn't help anyway. By lunchtime, the pain had gotten so severe I could barely look at my computer screen. I tried pushing through it, telling myself it would ease up, but then I got dizzy during a meeting and had to excuse myself. I ended up curled in a bathroom stall, sweating through my blouse, just trying not to pass out. A coworker, Jenny, found me like that. She didn't give me an option. She grabbed her keys and said we were going to urgent care. I tried to protest, saying I just needed a minute, but she practically hauled me to her car. The doctor at urgent care barely examined me before calling an ambulance. He said my blood pressure was dangerously low, and I heard the words internal hemorrhage thrown around. That was the moment panic really set in. They didn't even let me walk. I was put straight on a stretcher and loaded into the ambulance. At the ER, everything blurred together. They hooked me up to machines, took what felt like endless vials of blood, and rushed me for a CT scan. The scan showed internal bleeding in my abdomen, most likely from a ruptured blood vessel near my liver. The ER doctor told me they'd have to watch me closely and that surgery was on the table if things didn't stabilize. Lying there, scared and hooked up to tubes, I called my husband. It was around 2:30 in the afternoon. I explained everything as best as I could, that I was in the ER, they thought I was bleeding internally, and that our son would need to be picked up from school in less than an hour. His response? Silence at first, then this sigh, like I had just interrupted his day. He finally said he'd pick up our son and figure things out. That was it. No, I'm on my way. No, are you okay? Nothing. The rest of that day I was completely alone. I went through more scans, got poked with needles every hour, and had conversations with multiple specialists who all had different ideas. A vascular surgeon explained the risks of operating versus waiting. A hematologist wanted to test me for bleeding disorders. Then an oncologist showed up because cancer had to be ruled out. No one could give me an answer, which made everything scarier. By 8 that night, my phone was about to die, and I still hadn't seen or heard from my husband beyond that one call. I texted him, asking if he was coming. His response: he needed to help our son with homework and cook dinner, so he'd come if there was time. He never showed up. Around 11 p.m., they wheeled me into a hospital room. I'll never forget how cold and humiliating it felt being pushed down those long hallways in nothing but a thin hospital gown. I spent that entire night alone. Nurses came in constantly to check my vitals and draw blood, and every single one asked if someone was staying with me. All I could say was maybe my husband would come tomorrow. The pity on their faces said everything. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about my dad. He died suddenly from an aneurysm when I was 19. Perfectly fine one day, gone the next. Lying in that bed, I couldn't shake the thought that the same thing was happening to me. The next afternoon, my husband finally walked in. It was 2 p.m. He brought me a change of clothes and my phone charger, but not the toothbrush or deodorant I had specifically asked for. He stayed for exactly 22 minutes, I counted, before leaving to go back to work. 10 minutes after he left, the vascular specialist came in to discuss my case. My husband missed the whole thing. Later that evening, my mother-in-law called. She had only just found out I was in the hospital because my sister-in-law saw my Facebook post asking for prayers. My MIL was upset that my husband hadn't told her. She immediately offered to take care of our son so he could spend time at the hospital with me. I thanked her and told her I'd have him call. He never did. Over the next 4 days, my husband visited just twice more. The visits were short, never more than half an hour. The first time, he brought our son. My son hugged me quickly and then sat in a chair playing on his tablet the entire time. I don't blame him, he's a kid and hospitals are boring, but my husband didn't make any effort to help him talk to me or make me feel less alone. The last visit was the most infuriating. The attending physician came in to explain my case and possible next steps, and my husband kept cutting him off to complain about the $8 daily parking fee and how much the insurance was being billed. The doctor looked uncomfortable, I felt humiliated, and when the doctor left, my husband just shrugged and said, "Well, at least we've met our deductible this year." That was all. What stings the most is that help was available. My mother-in-law lives 15 minutes away and kept offering. My sister offered. Even our neighbors did. But my husband never bothered arranging childcare so he could be there for me. He didn't bring me real food, even though he knows I hate hospital meals and the cafeteria was right downstairs. Every night, I lay there watching other patients surrounded by loved ones. Husbands, wives, kids, all showing up, bringing food, asking questions, staying overnight. The woman in the bed next to me was in her 70s, and her husband barely left her side. He even slept in that awful recliner chair for 3 nights straight. Meanwhile, when a doctor raised the possibility of cancer, I had no one by my side. I nodded, agreed to more testing, and then spent the night staring at the ceiling, terrified and alone. By Saturday, the bleeding had stopped on its own, and my blood counts were improving. They planned to discharge me on Sunday. I texted my husband Saturday night, letting him know I'd be ready to leave around noon and would need a ride. Sunday morning, while I was waiting for my paperwork, he texted back. He said he was in the middle of a football game with friends at the park and told me it would be easier if I just took an Uber. So that's exactly what I did. I left the hospital in an Uber, still weak, barely able to walk, holding a flimsy plastic bag with my belongings. When I finally walked through the door after 5 days in the hospital, the first thing that hit me wasn't relief about being home, it was the mess. The house looked like a frat party had exploded in it. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink like they'd been there for days, laundry spilling over the hamper, pizza boxes stacked on the counter, empty soda cans scattered across the room. And right in the middle of all of it, my husband and our son sat side by side on the couch, locked into their video game. I stood there in the doorway for a full minute, still wearing my hospital bracelet, holding the flimsy plastic bag with my belongings, and not a single head turned in my direction. No pause in the game, no welcome home, not even a glance. It was like I was invisible. Eventually, I gave up waiting for acknowledgement, went to the bedroom, and showered off the grime of 5 days in a hospital bed. When I came back to the kitchen, starving, I made myself a sandwich. While I was in there, I absent-mindedly started picking up some of the mess, even though the doctor had given me strict orders, no heavy lifting, no real housework, no exertion for at least 2 weeks. My husband walked in, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and walked out without a single word. Here's the part one can't get out of my head. When he had kidney stones 3 years ago, I dropped everything. I took a week off work, slept overnight in that same awful hospital recliner, and still managed to keep our house running. I set up playdates for our son, handled meals, laundry, everything, and I still showed up every single day with home-cooked food and fresh clothes for him. When his dad was hospitalized last year with heart issues, I carried our entire household on my back for 2 weeks straight so he could be with his father every single day. I didn't complain. I didn't keep score. That's just what you do when your partner needs you. We even renewed our vows just last year, stood in front of friends and family, him with tears in his eyes, promising me that he'd always be there in sickness and in health. I believed him. But the first time I really needed him? He left me to go through one of the scariest experiences of my life almost completely alone. I haven't directly confronted him yet. To be honest, I don't have the energy. I'm still recovering, and I know it'll blow up into a fight. He's been acting like nothing's wrong, like everything is completely normal. This morning, he even asked why I hadn't done the laundry yet. I reminded him of the doctor's orders, no lifting anything over 5 pounds, and he actually shrugged and said, "The laundry basket doesn't weigh 5 pounds when it's empty." What makes all of this sting worse is that he knows my history. My mom died of cancer when I was a teenager. I spent years sitting in a hospital room, watching her fade away, and the smell of disinfectant still gives me panic attacks sometimes. Not long after that, I lost my dad suddenly to an aneurysm. My husband knows all of this. He knows how terrified I am of hospitals, how easily my anxiety spirals in medical settings. He was there for me when I completely fell apart after a miscarriage in 2012. He saw me in therapy trying to rebuild myself after that. And yet, when it mattered most this time, he wasn't there. It's left me questioning everything about our marriage. Have I just been blind all along to how one-sided this relationship really is? Or did something change without me noticing? Was I wrong to expect him to sit by my side during a life-threatening emergency? Am I overreacting, and in his mind he was just being practical by keeping our son's routine steady? I've tried to see it from his perspective, but all I feel is this sinking realization that maybe I'm seeing things clearly for the first time and it's nothing like what I thought we had. Update: it's been almost a month since my hospital stay, and I wanted to share what's happened since. First, thank you again to everyone who commented or messaged me. I was overwhelmed reading through all of your support, and honestly, it helped me see I wasn't crazy for feeling abandoned. I finally had the conversation with my husband that I'd been avoiding. It happened when we were talking about our son's upcoming dental surgery. I said I'd take the day off to be there, and my husband immediately questioned it. Why do you need to be there? It's just a tooth. You'd just be sitting in the waiting room doing nothing. That comment was like pouring gasoline on everything I'd been bottling up. I snapped. I told him point blank that being there for family during medical stuff is not optional, it's what partners and parents do. And then I laid it all out, how I sat alone in that hospital bed for 5 days, how I had to process the possibility of cancer with no one by my side, how I had to Uber home because he was at the park playing football with his friends. I told him that it was one of the scariest experiences of my life, and the fact that he couldn't bother to sit next to me or hold my hand spoke louder than any vow he ever made. And his response? He looked at me and said, "What exactly was I supposed to do? Sit there and stare at you while doctors handled it? You were being taken care of. I had work and our kid to deal with." I tried to explain to him that emotional support isn't about doing something useful. It's about being there. It's about having someone in your corner when you're terrified and vulnerable. But the fact that he still doesn't get that. I don't even know where to go from here. When I tried to explain that if things had gone differently, if I'd needed emergency surgery, he wouldn't have even been there to help make decisions, he laughed at me. Not a nervous laugh, not even confusion, an actual dismissive scoff. Rolled his eyes and said I was being dramatic, like I was some over-emotional child blowing things out of proportion. His exact words were, "Nothing bad happened in the end, so what's the big deal? You always make mountains out of molehills." I brought up the fact that multiple family members had offered to help with childcare so he could be at the hospital with me. He brushed it off, saying, "Our son needs stability, not to be shuffled around from house to house." I was being a good father. As if abandoning his wife during a life-threatening medical crisis was somehow a noble sacrifice in the name of routine. So I asked him, straight out, how would you feel if the roles were reversed? If you were lying in a hospital bed, terrified, hooked up to machines, and I barely showed up? If I sent you home in an Uber because I had something more important to do? He shrugged, barely even looking at me, and said, "I wouldn't have expected you to drop everything. I'm not needy." And that's when it finally sank in, we don't just react differently. We don't share the same values at all. To me, in sickness and in health means being present when it's hard, not just when it's convenient. To him, it apparently means, I'll split the bills and maybe check in if I feel like it. When I pushed further, saying I was worried about how he'd handle future health scares, especially with my family history of cancer and aneurysms, he didn't comfort me. He didn't reassure me. He slammed the door and stormed off like a sulking teenager. For days afterward, he barely spoke to me except to ask where things were or when dinner would be ready. And when I tried to bring it up again about a week later, he dismissed me completely. "That's ancient history," he said. "Stop living in the past." That's when I started looking back over the years and realizing this wasn't some isolated failure, it was a pattern I'd been overlooking, minimizing, or excusing. When our daughter broke her arm at soccer 2 years ago, he dropped her at the ER and went back to work, leaving me to juggle everything. When I miscarried between our 2 children, he went golfing the very next day because, as he put it, staying home wouldn't change anything. The hospital situation wasn't a one-off. It was just the most extreme version of who he's always been. Meanwhile, my recovery dragged on. At a follow-up with the vascular specialist, I was diagnosed with a rare condition, hepatic artery aneurysm. That's what ruptured and caused the internal bleeding. It's not something that just goes away. It's something I'll live with for the rest of my life. I'll need regular scans, and there's a 15 to 20% chance another aneurysm could develop somewhere else. When I told him this, his reaction? He looked up from his phone for maybe 3 seconds and said, "Well, at least insurance covered most of it." Then went right back to scrolling. No questions about what this meant for me, no concern, no, "I'm scared for you." Just nothing. That was the nail in the coffin. I realized I'd been lying to myself for years about what kind of marriage I was actually in. The sad truth is I can't just walk away right now, no matter how much I want to. Divorce isn't financially possible. He makes nearly 3 times what I do, and between my medical costs, my son's school support, and the housing market where we live, I can't afford to uproot our kids. My daughter's in her 2nd year at the community college nearby and still living at home. If we moved, it would derail her education too. I'm stuck, for now. But I've started making quiet changes. My medical power of attorney now lists my sister, not him. I've been setting aside a little money from every paycheck into an account he doesn't know about. And I started therapy on my own through my work's employee assistance program, so it doesn't even touch our insurance. My therapist has been helping me see how much I've minimized my needs and rationalized his behavior just to keep the peace. A lot of people suggested couples counseling, so I floated the idea. Predictably, he brushed it off. We don't need a stranger telling us how to live. That's for people with real problems. When I told him I do think we have real problems, he accused me of making drama and walked out of the room. That's who he is, someone who shuts down rather than face the truth. So I've stopped expecting him to be my partner. I see him as a co-parent and a roommate. We share a house, we share kids, but that's it. My energy now is on healing, planning for the future, and building a life where I don't have to rely on him. It might take years, but I'm done pretending. The one unexpected bright spot has been my mother-in-law. After so many people told me to talk to her, I finally did. And she wasn't surprised at all. Apparently, my father-in-law was just like my husband, emotionally checked out, dismissive, unavailable. She admitted she stayed for financial reasons until my husband graduated, then divorced. She told me watching my marriage feels like reliving her own, and she even apologized for not warning me sooner. She's even offered me financial help if I decide to leave. I'm not ready yet, but just hearing that she's in my corner meant more than I can explain. Last weekend, at my daughter's 20th birthday party, my MAL pulled me aside. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "You deserve better than this. Don't waste as many years as I did waiting for him to change." Coming from her, it hit hard. Now I live in this strange limbo. Legally married, emotionally divorced. Sharing a house with a man who feels more like a roommate than a husband. It's not the life I pictured when we said our vows. But I can't lie to myself anymore. Physically, I'm doing better. The bruises are gone, I'm back at work full-time, though I tire more easily than before. I have another follow-up appointment coming up, and this time I've already arranged for my sister to come with me. I didn't even bother asking my husband. And to everyone who commented on my original post, thank you. Reading your words helped me realize I wasn't crazy for wanting the bare minimum of support during a medical crisis. It shouldn't have taken strangers on the internet to remind me of this, but sometimes you need the reminder. In sickness and in health doesn't come with an asterisk, and it sure as hell shouldn't come with a list of exceptions.